Hello adults, are you ready for an adult story time? It's not an adult story in a dodgy way. It's an adult story in an amazing way. It's called The Warm Fuzzy Tale by Claude M. Steiner and was copyrighted in 1969. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there lived two happy people called Tim and Maggie with their two children, John and Lucy. To understand how happy they were, you have to understand how things were in those days. You see, in those days, everyone was given a small, soft, fluffy, fuzzy bag when they were born. Anytime a person reached into this bag, they were able to pull out a warm fuzzy! Yay! A warm fuzzy. Warm fuzzies were very much in demand because whenever someone was given a warm fuzzy, it made them feel warm and fuzzy all over. I love you too, baby. Yay! In those days, it was very easy to get warm fuzzies. Any time that someone felt like it, he might walk up to you and say, I'd like to have a warm fuzzy. You would then reach into your bag and pull out a fuzzy the size of a child's hand. This is rather a big warm fuzzy. Yay! As soon as the fuzzy saw the light of day, it would smile and blossom into a large warm fuzzy. Then you laid the warm fuzzy on the person's head. When you laid it on their head or their shoulder or lap, it would snuggle up and melt right against their skin and make them feel good all over. People were always asking each other for warm fuzzies. And since they were always given freely, getting enough of them was never a problem. There were always plenty to go around, so everyone was happy and felt warm and fuzzy most of the time. One day, a bad witch called Farmer, I added that bit about Farmer. One day, a bad witch called Farmer, who made salves and potions for sick people, became angry because everyone was so happy and feeling good and no one was buying potions and salves. The witch Farmer was very clever and devised a very wicked plan. One beautiful morning, while Maggie was playing with her daughter, the witch crept up to Tim and whispered in his ear. See here, Tim, look at all the fuzzies that Maggie is giving to Lucy. You know, if she keeps it up, she's going to run out and then there won't be any left for you. Tim was astonished. He turned to the witch and asked, Do you mean to tell me there isn't a warm fuzzy in our bag every time we reach into it? And the witch answered, No, absolutely not. And once you run out, that's it. You don't have any more. With this, the witch flew away on a broom, laughing and cackling all the way. Tim took this to heart and began to notice every time Maggie gave away a warm fuzzy. He got very worried because he liked Maggie's warm fuzzies very much and did not want to give them up. He certainly did not think it was right for Maggie to be spending all her warm fuzzies on the children and other people. Tim began to complain or sulk when he saw Maggie giving warm fuzzies to somebody else. And because Maggie loved him very much, she stopped giving warm fuzzies to other people as often and reserved most of them for him. The children watched this and soon began to get the idea that it was wrong to give warm fuzzies any time you were asked for or felt like it. They too became very careful. They would watch their parents closely, and whenever they felt that one of their parents was giving too many fuzzies to others, they felt jealous and complained, and sometimes even had a tantrum. And even though they found a warm fuzzy every time they reached into their bag, they began to feel guilty whenever they gave them away, so they reached in less and less and became more and more stingy with them. Before the witch came the witch Farmer, people used to gather in groups of 3, 4 or 5, never caring too much about who was giving warm fuzzies to whom. After the coming of the witch, people began to pair off and to reserve all their warm fuzzies for each other exclusively. When people forgot to be careful, gave a warm fuzzy to just anybody, they worried because they knew that somebody somewhere would probably resent them sharing their warm fuzzies. People began to give less and less warm fuzzies and felt less warm and less fuzzy. They began to shrivel up, and occasionally people would even die for lack of warm fuzzies. People felt worse and worse, and more people went to the witch to buy potions and salves, even though they didn't really seem to work. Well, the situation was getting very serious indeed. The bad witch, who had been watching all of this, didn't really want the people to die, since dead people couldn't buy her salves and potions. So a new plan was devised. Everyone was given, free of charge, a bag that was very similar to the fuzzy bag, except that this one was cold, while the fuzzy bag had been warm. Inside of the witch's bag were cold pricklies. These cold pricklies did not make people feel warm and fuzzy. In fact, they made them feel cold and prickly instead. But the cold pricklies were better than nothing, and they did prevent people's backs from shriveling up. So from then on, when people asked for a warm fuzzy, like me, those of them who were worried about depleting their supply would say, I can't give you a warm fuzzy, but would you like a cold prickly instead?
Like me.
Sometimes two people would walk up to each other thinking they maybe could get a warm fuzzy this time, but one of them would change his mind and they would wind up giving each other cold pricklies instead. So the end result was that the people were not dying anymore, but a lot of people were very unhappy and feeling cold and prickly instead.
Result!
The situation got very complicated since the coming of the witch, because there were fewer and fewer warm fuzzies around, and warm fuzzies, which used to be free as air, became extremely valuable. This caused people to do all sorts of things in order to get warm fuzzies. People who could not find a generous partner had to buy their warm fuzzies and had to work long hours to earn the money. Some people became popular, and they got a lot of warm fuzzies without having to give any back. These people would then sell their warm fuzzies to people who were unpopular and needed the warm fuzzies to feel that life was worth living. Another thing which happened was that some people could take cold pricklies, which were everywhere and freely available, and coated them white and fluffy so they almost looked like warm fuzzies. These fake warm fuzzies were really plastic fuzzies, and they caused additional problems. For instance, 2 or more people would get together and freely give each other plastic fuzzies. They expected to feel good, but they came away feeling bad instead. People got very confused, never realizing that their cold prickly feelings were because they had been given a lot of plastic fuzzies. So the situation was very, very dismal, and it all started because of the coming of the witch farmer, who made people believe that someday, when least expected, they might reach into their warm fuzzy bag and find no more.
Oh
no! Not long ago, a young woman with big hips, that's what it says there, this is 1969, a young woman with big hips came to this unhappy land. She seemed not to have heard about the bad witch and was not worried about running out of warm fuzzies. She gave them out freely, even when not asked. They called her the hip woman. Hey, the 60s. They called her the hip woman, yeah, and disapproved of her because she was giving the children the idea that they should not worry about running out of warm fuzzies. Yay! The children liked her very much because they felt good around her, and they began to follow her example, giving out warm fuzzies whenever they felt like it. This made the grown-ups very worried. To protect the children from depleting their supplies of warm fuzzies, they passed a law. The law made it a criminal offence to give out warm fuzzies in a reckless manner, or without a licence. Many children, however, seem not to care, and in spite of the law, they continued to give each other warm fuzzies whenever they felt like it, and always when asked. Because they were many, many children, almost as many as grown-ups, it began to look as if maybe they would have their way. As of now, it's hard to tell what will happen. Will the grown-ups' law stop the recklessness of the children? Are the grown-ups going to join with the hip woman and the children in taking a chance that there will always be as many warm fuzzies as are needed? Will they remember the days their children are trying to bring back when warm fuzzies were abundant because people gave them away freely? The struggle spread all over the land and is probably going on right now where you live. If you want to, and I hope you do, you can join by freely giving and asking for warm fuzzies. And being as lovely and loving and as healthy as you can.